the Titanic mystery. Not the one about an iceberg in the North Atlantic, but one far stranger and far less known. When James Cameron's Titanic premiered in December 1997, it became a global sensation. The sweeping romance, the grandeur of the ship, the heartbreaking end. It was unlike anything audiences had seen before. The film shattered records and became, at the time, the highest-grossing movie in history. To this day, it still lingers in the top tier of box office champions, alongside Cameron's other juggernaut, Avatar. But success on screen does not always reflect harmony behind the camera. Cameron himself had a reputation, a director celebrated for vision, but notorious for his iron-fisted approach to filmmaking. Crew members from earlier productions whispered stories of exhaustion, impossible demands, and brutal intensity. On Terminator 2, the crew even made T-shirts that read, "You can't scare me, I work for Jim Cameron." On True Lies, workers joked that using the bathroom might cost you your job. So, in the summer of 1996, as Titanic was being shot in Nova Scotia, the pressure was already immense. The budget was spiraling out of control, the schedule stretched thin, and Cameron's perfectionism demanded nothing less than total commitment. Cast and crew braced themselves for long nights, freezing waters, and relentless takes. But what none of them expected was that their greatest danger would come not from the sea, but from the dinner table. It happened on the night of August 9th, 1996. Production had shifted to Halifax, Nova Scotia, to film the modern-day sequences that would bookend the film. The present-day salvage crew discovering the wreck, and the elderly Rose recounting her story. After hours of grueling work, the cast and crew were finally served a late-night meal, seafood chowder, a hearty comfort food against the Atlantic chill. The chowder was steaming hot, the bowls ladled out one by one. The crew dug in, grateful for warmth and nourishment. But soon after, something began to feel wrong. Very wrong. At first, it was subtle. A few people felt dizzy, nauseous. Someone laughed inappropriately at nothing. Others clutched their stomachs. But the symptoms spread quickly, like fire racing through dry brush. Crew members staggered, slurred their speech, fell to the ground. One person began weeping uncontrollably. Another reported terrifying hallucinations. The set descended into chaos. James Cameron himself wasn't spared. Actor Bill Paxton, Cameron's frequent collaborator, later recalled seeing the director disoriented, stumbling around with a roll of toilet paper wrapped around his head, trying to make sense of the madness. It was surreal, nightmarish, like something out of Cameron's own science fiction thrillers, except this was horrifyingly real. Emergency services were called. Ambulances rushed to the set. By the time help arrived, dozens of people had been affected. In total, around 50 cast and crew were hospitalized that night. The headlines the next day were shocking. Titanic production poisoned. The question was immediate. What had happened? The chowder was quickly tested, and the results left no doubt. Someone had deliberately spiked the food with phencyclidine, better known as PCP, or angel dust. For those unfamiliar, PCP is not a mild hallucinogen. It is a dangerous, powerful drug capable of inducing delirium, paranoia, violent outbursts, and total disorientation. To lace food with it was no prank. It was an attack. But who would do such a thing, and why? The investigation began at once. Halifax police treated it as a case of food tampering, a serious criminal act. The catering company responsible for the meal denied involvement. In fact, they suggested something altogether different, that perhaps the drugs had been brought in by the Hollywood crowd themselves as part of some reckless party gone out of control. James Cameron rejected this outright. To him, it wasn't an accident nor a prank. It was sabotage. Someone wanted to harm him or at least derail his film. Given his reputation for being demanding, some might say tyrannical, it wasn't impossible to imagine a disgruntled worker taking revenge. The police searched for answers. They interviewed staff. They tested what food remained. They examined the catering, but nothing pointed to a culprit. No one came forward. And in the absence of evidence, suspicion hung in the air, poisoning the atmosphere long after the chowder had worn off. Still, the show went on. Against all odds, the Titanic production continued. Cameron, notorious for never slowing down, pushed forward. He demanded, he directed, he obsessed over details, even as the strange mystery of the chowder haunted the set. By 1999, with Titanic a record-breaking success, and Cameron now a Hollywood king, the Halifax police quietly closed the case. No suspect was ever identified. No arrests, no charges, no resolution. Just silence. And so the question lingers. Who poisoned the cast and crew of Titanic? One theory points to Cameron's own reputation. Stories of his dictatorial style are legendary. Crew collapsing from exhaustion, staff forbidden from taking bathroom breaks, constant berating of those he found inefficient. Could one of these exhausted, humiliated workers have decided to strike back, to lace the food with a drug that would cause chaos and humiliation in return? Another theory suggests an outsider. Perhaps it wasn't the film crew at all, but someone connected to the catering staff, or even a local with access to the food. PCP is not the kind of drug one accidentally sprinkles into chowder. Whoever did this had intent. The question is whether the intent was personal or random. There is also the possibility, however unlikely, that it really was a prank gone horribly wrong. Someone thinking they could give the crew a wild night, not realizing the scale of what they were unleashing. But again, PCP is not a party trick. It is a substance that can cause psychosis and even death. To put it in food is reckless beyond imagination. And then, there's the strangest twist of all. In Cameron's 1984 classic The Terminator, there's a fleeting reference to PCP when police dismiss a suspect's wild claims as the ravings of someone on angel dust. Pure coincidence? Or an eerie echo of what would later befall Cameron himself? Nearly 3 decades later, the case remains unsolved. The truth has slipped beneath the surface, just like the ship that inspired the film. No one has confessed. No evidence has surfaced. And the motive, whether revenge, sabotage, or madness, remains hidden in the murk. But the story lingers in Hollywood as one of the strangest, most unsettling incidents ever to strike a major film set. A story of a production already burdened by impossible expectations, now haunted by a very real act of malice. 50 people poisoned, a blockbuster nearly derailed, a crime never solved. So we are left to wonder, who tried to sink Titanic before it ever set sail? Was it a crew member driven past the breaking point, a saboteur hiding in plain sight, or something else entirely, a motive we may never understand? Like the mysteries of the real Titanic lying at the bottom of the ocean, some secrets refuse to surface. This is one of them. The film went on to conquer the world. But behind the glittering awards, the box office triumphs, and the cultural obsession with Jack and Rose, there is another story, stranger, darker, and unsolved. The story of the night James Cameron and his crew tasted chowder and swallowed poison. And somewhere out there, the person responsible still walks free. A question mark that will forever hang over one of the most successful films of all time. Not every ship sinks to the ocean floor. Some mysteries remain afloat, ghostly, unanswered, and chilling. This is one of them.